Welcome to episode number 66 of the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Temte. Today we've got Brandon Carson joining us as the third guest in our miniseries on the importance of building the skill of business acumen in individuals and in teams. Brandon is Vice President of Learning and Leadership at Walmart. He's also the author of 2 books on the field of learning and development and is the founder of L&D Cares. Now, Brandon, thank you for joining us. As a promo, I've got your book right here. And if you're interested, you can find that on Amazon. And I'm particularly interested in diving in on your 3 R's for learning and development: reset, rethink, rebuild. I'm really behind all that. So thanks for joining us.
Great. Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, Andy. Really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So as we always do with all our guests, before we get started, it'd be great if you told our listeners your story.
Okay, I'll just give you the short story. So it's been a long and winding road, but the short story is this was not a chosen career. It was unplanned, but I've been doing it for 25 years. Started out in a little town in New Mexico where I was born, migrated when I was 20 years old to California, and landed in Silicon Valley and spent a good 28 years of my life there. Had a wonderful kid. She's still there in Santa Cruz. She's a linguist now, and got into training completely by accident. It was the rise of the internet, kind of heady times in the Valley, and tech companies all around needing to or wanting to figure out this new thing called the internet and can it be leveraged for training. So spent the first half of my career just trying to figure that out with tech companies, and really started out as the developer of what we called web-based training back in the day. Was a developer, then became an instructional designer, working on a contract and consulting basis in the Valley, moving from tech company to tech company. Eventually moved into on the corporate side of things, and eventually have just progressed into different roles as my career went along, and then migrated to Atlanta to lead training transformation at Home Depot. Did that for several years, and then moved over to Delta Airlines, where I led the training team for the global airport operations. And then last year in June, moved over to Walmart to lead the learning and leadership practice there.
Well, that's wonderful. I love talking to learning leaders that did not plan to be in that space. Last week we had Torrance Ford on the show from Shaw Industries, another Georgia-based company, and he went to school for mechanical engineering and had an engineering and software development career before he got into to talent management. So it's just really, really, really interesting that you took that path. If you had to pick one event in your life that just put rocket boosters behind you, what would that be?
It's a great question. When I was working with the tech companies in the Valley, like I said, it was heady times. It was one of those times where it felt like anything could be done, although we were in that evolutionary period of what really could be done with the internet. This was back we started really in the low bandwidth days of what we were trying to do. And that was really the accelerant for me. Is I spent 10 years in the Valley working with several tech companies, Sun Microsystems, Oracle, Microsoft, Apple, HP, all the companies that were around, really forming what has become the sort of status quo now of the infrastructure for how we now disseminate information and training. I was part of the first LMS integration at Intel, and I developed their first e-learning program. So I think that I would probably put those years, that's what fueled it for me, to your to your question, because I became really passionate about building capability in others through this, and then leveraging technology to do that at a scale that we had done before, but it was more difficult. And so this was sort of democratizing the dissemination of, learning for the masses. And that's what really took hold in me. Like I said, I didn't plan this, but as we were doing it, I was lucky to work with some really great people, and that's what fueled my passion for it and what kept me in it.
Yeah, my father was an educator. My mother also on the corporate side with Train Company, and to be on the education side, especially corporate training, to see the light bulbs go off in learners' eyes, especially at scale, it's quite intoxicating.
That aha
think.
moment. I really enjoyed it when I would be facilitating. I did a lot of technical training, technology subjects like Java and JavaScript and, those kinds of things. And I just loved it in the room when people would, you have that aha moment with them. That was always great. And that sort of stuck with me, that ability to help others. I mean, that was not in my DNA. I was the first one in my family to even go to college. So we weren't educators, never really thought of it that way. It's more, I was always thinking of just helping others be able to really perform their jobs and succeed in their chosen careers and stuff like that. So, and then all of a sudden you look back and you're like doing this for 25 years and you're like, okay, there's no plan B. This is it. Right. So,
Right. Well, let's dive into the topic at hand, which is this concept of business acumen. When you hear that phrase, what does it mean to you?
So I like to think of it in a little bit of a different way, maybe than others might. And we talk about this a lot just as learning people. There's this big difference in my mind of how the work should get done and then how it actually gets done. And so when I talk about it, and I talk about this in the book, the three things a learning leader needs, and one of them is business acumen. I think we all need that. Everyone needs to understand how, the business works for the company they work for and the industries they're in. I look at it as really understanding as deeply as you can how the business operates. How do you make money? What markets are you in? So it's that traditional, like, this is business acumen. But then it goes a little deeper to understand the constraints that we all operate in when it comes to working in the business, leading the business. And it also means connecting to a good and deep understanding of how you, in your capacity of HR or L&D, whatever capacity you're in that people practice area, how you can help evolve those work systems to make work better. Because one thing we know is work is not going to get less complex. It's going to get more complicated. We know that there are lots of constraints and challenges in the operating models. We're in this, I don't know if you watch Stranger Things, Andy, or not, but I sometimes compare this to the upside down, this time we're in right now. It's like the upside down in Stranger Things. We're in these complicated, confusing times. The digital age alone was accelerating us exponentially. The last 2 decades alone, right, have been pretty transformational in how we've started to leverage technology and how businesses are investing in it astronomically year over year. And it's really made the work very challenging. And then, of course, we had the crisis of the last 2.5 years, which actually accelerated a lot of different dynamics in ways of working and how we leverage technology even more to sustain business continuity and those types of things. And so now coming out of it, though, we've rewritten the script a bit, and there's different expectations that people have of what they want work to be in their lives. And so not to get too really broad about it, but business acumen is not just, it's understanding how the work actually gets done, how the business operates. We as L&D and HR people have to really be connected to that. But it's also understanding how the human component and the intelligent machinery and software and smart systems, that those components, how they all come together to accelerate or, bring velocity to how the business outcomes need to be, delivered and be met. And so it's actually wildly confusing. It's wildly chaotic and it's challenging right now. And there are so many dynamics that swirl around us that are challenging for people like us in HR and L&D to help smooth all that out for our employees.
Yeah. Love that last thing that you said there, the role of L&D and HR just to smooth the chaos just a little bit. I talk about the forces of entropy, how, the natural state of things is for them to fall apart. I talk about that a lot in my first book and then my forthcoming book as well. So thanks for that mental image of smoothness. It's really,
right.
really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a leader and influencer in the learning and development space, you see directly the work readiness or the lack thereof of secondary school and higher education graduates. In your assessment, what needs to change going back to primary and secondary school to improve business literacy, which is then the precursor of business acumen?
Yeah, really good thought there. I was just talking about this the other day to a group of Dutch leaders in New York. They were learning leaders from several Dutch companies, and I was expressing to them parts of the challenges in the American system that we have going on right now. So we have, since the pandemic unfolded, almost 2 million teachers have left public education. 1 in 5 Americans don't even have a basic level of English literacy. For the first time since we've been recording it, our math scores in America are going down. And so, granted, the pandemic is a lot of the cause of this. Our teachers are fleeing the public education system. Our kids are suffering. And we have a system in stress, a lot of stress. And so when you have that calamity going on the side of, in our society, and then we have corporate America who, like I said earlier, they're investing in advanced technology year over year at an astronomical rate. The biggest technology, obviously, is AI technologies that are being integrated and invested in. And the workforce coming to us from the public school system, where 90% of American kids go, are not coming to us prepared with the capabilities business needs to succeed in this digital world. And so that's an unsustainable challenge, if you will. And so we've got to address not only corporate America is addressing some of this through the capability building that they're doing. A lot of our frontline audiences, we're creating our training for using 6th grade English that we're writing in. And, a lot of folks coming into the workplace are needing basic education and training to be able to be effective and productive in the corporate environment. And so there's a misalignment that's unsustainable, like I said. And so we've got to corporate America is dealing with these granular issues of building capability and creating strategies to expand the talent pool and make it more equitable and look at alternative routes to helping people get the capabilities they need to be productive and effective. But there's also those systemic challenges that we need to face too, of helping to fix the education system in the country. And, what are we looking for when it comes to how we educate our children and how we work with our teachers and, all of these sort of broader systemic issues that are still there. And you're seeing a lot more companies get more involved in the communities in which we serve from an education and training perspective, which is something we're definitely doing at Walmart. So.
Yeah. I thank you for in your description there. Just a little bit of a preview. Our next mini series is on data literacy, and as an extension, digital literacy will come later. But
I will definitely listen to that, because that is a key component here. I'm literally looking at this, Andy, as a capability crisis, and we have two types of workers in this country right now. We have a physical worker focused more on the routine tasks and the less complex activities that make up a day's worth of work, and then we have the cognitive worker that's focused on the more complex problem-solving activities and the non-routine tasks. And there's a chasm growing between those two types of workers that, we talk a lot about this in corporate America. We talk about reskilling and upskilling, and a lot of us talk about it, but the challenge here is this chasm is growing. And if we don't start addressing this really significant challenge of the skills gaps that we're facing, and I'm saying start because a lot of companies don't know how to do this. They haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
We're already behind the 8 ball on this. And so if we're not careful, there's going to be a significant number of the workforce that's left behind. Because if there is something that can be automated in business will automate it. And if it takes jobs away, or if it requires augmentation to jobs that then will require more capability to work with technology or interact with technology, those aren't skills that necessarily happen quickly. And so we have to start looking within our companies like, okay, if we're assertively integrating AI technologies year over year and more smart machinery and intelligent software, all these things into our workflows, then are we skilling at a level that's necessary to make sure the workforce can keep up and not leave behind a significant number of the workforce?
Well, we're on video today. I wish I could reach through the camera and give you a nice fist bump there, because that was wonderful. Let's move on to the collegiate level and just run a simple thought experiment. Imagine that you've got a university chancellor right in front of you right now. What advice do you give to them to set their graduates up for success in this very challenging workplace and workforce that you're talking about to build business acumen?
Well, actually, I was in front of some UC regents and chancellors not too long ago, because I was at a panel conversation about what we're doing in the skilling space, and then right after that was what universities are doing. And so it was really interesting to hear them. And, just to be transparent and candid, what I walked away from listening to both panels was, and I talked about chasm between worker types, was this really big chasm between higher education and the reality that we're facing in corporate America, right? And so what seems to have happened is this inaccessible system that is available for just a few. I mean, the majority of Americans do not have a college degree. 60% of Americans don't have a college degree. And yet, the majority of jobs that pay over $40,000 a year in this country require one. So that means that the majority of Americans aren't eligible for the jobs that are out there. And so we've got, but then we have this higher education system that has gotten very expensive and inaccessible and, kind of beyond the path for a significant number of people. So then you have this kind of locked system there, and you have corporate America going, okay, there's not enough humans being made that are going to go through that system. So we've got to start rethinking the job architecture and figuring out how do we broaden or open the aperture, if you will, and look differently? And do we need to be requiring a college degree for certain jobs? And most of this actually started in tech. There were some tech companies that it was baseline that you had a college degree. And what really mattered was where you got that college degree. And so even just over the last decade, that has changed because they're realizing there's not enough people with those qualifications to do the jobs. So the corporate system has been pretty flexible and agile in trying to figure this out. And the job architectures are taking a long time for us to figure out. One coalition, if you will, that we're working with at Walmart, and that almost 100 other companies are involved in, is what Jenny Rometty helped put together, from the former chairman of IBM, called the 110 Coalition, which is looking at hiring 1 million Black people into family-sustaining jobs that do not require a college degree over the next 10 years. And Walmart is in that coalition, and we're going to be able to provide a significant number of those jobs. And by family-sustaining and by no college degree, that in and of itself tells you that we have an inherently inequitable system. It's an unequal system. So when I talk, and I know I'm going kind of off on a rabbit hole here, but when you look at business acumen, you know, some of the higher degree institutions are really disconnected from what it means to really be able to come into a business and function in a way that drives what we call value creation, right? And so we've actually also, on another tangent, have been working with business colleges and universities to help design the types of credentials and programs that can bring about that day one readiness, if you will, for people who do go into programs, and especially advanced programs, you know, master's programs and that level, to help folks be ready to come in and lead the business when they come in. So it's an inherently unequal system, but we're not saying that it's not valuable to have a college degree. It is valuable to have a college degree. We're trying to work where we can with the university system to make sure that what folks are investing in to get those degrees will help them be ready to lead business when they come into business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for the support, really, for our mini series earlier this past spring on the reskilling revolution. 1 billion people need to be reskilled over the next 10 years. Colleges and universities just don't have that throughput that's necessary to be able to fill those jobs. A little bit of it, since we're going on some tangents here. Are you finding any success convincing higher education leaders to disaggregate the degree into more of its component parts to make the stepping stones toward job readiness through higher education more accessible, less costly? Because as you said, the degree shouldn't be the be-all, end-all. It should be a set of stackable skills, yes, and knowledge, skills, capabilities that allow somebody to be successful in the workplace. Are you finding some success there?
Yes, we are. And so what we're doing, so we've got a program called Live Better You. And Live Better You is an internal program at Walmart where we provide no-cost high school and college degrees to our frontline associates in the U.S. and some of our hourly associates and some of our frontline salaried associates. And so from day one, for part-time or full-time associates, they have over 60 programs available to them that they can go through and get a degree or a credential to expand their opportunity and develop themselves and grow. And we offer this at no cost, including books. And so how do we operationalize this? Because to us, what's important with a 1.6 million, audience that comes to work for us, we want to be able to move this kind of good job you get at Walmart into a great career. And we do that through, like you said, skilling and credentialing and giving an opportunity for you to grow. So how we do that is we've been partnering with a company called Guild Education. And so Guild Education, and a lot of companies are doing this now, but Walmart sort of paved the way here. Guild Education provides a platform that enables in a user-friendly way, like this is a consumer-grade experience, provides access to over 60 different university programs where associates who work here can look through the catalog and figure out, what they want to do, what kind of opportunity they want to seek. And Guild Education partners with us. They provide coaching to help unlock potential, discover opportunity for associates who are interested in following this path, and then provide them access to it. And so what we've been doing through Guild is working with these providers, these universities, to look at what are the types of programs that make the most sense for people, for working adults who are looking to build their capability and their credentials so that they can move from, just like I said, that good job to a great career. And so what we're literally doing here, because when you look at the scale of a Walmart, it's like we're larger in some ways than like the community college system in the country.
Yeah.
So we're literally democratizing education. Our CEO, Doug McMillan, wants us to invest. He's guaranteed a $1 billion investment over the next 5 years in education and training for our associates, because we know that offering this type of, access, and it's access that's the key driver here, to universities that really get you straight to the capabilities and skills and education you need. So we've been, to make this operationalized, Guild and ourselves work through these providers to make sure that the programs make sense for the folks coming in. And it's potentially changing the landscape of what we think about when we think about what is a credential, that will, increase your quality of life. But it's not just a degree either. So through this platform and through connecting with our business areas that have high demand for people. So for instance, technology, our health and wellness business, even our trades business where we need truck drivers, we need HVAC repair folks. There's all sorts of opportunity for you to get a skilled credential through this platform as well, where you can literally, a truck driver can, it's less than a year, you can go through this program and triple your quality of life. Truck drivers are starting at like 6 figures. It's $100,000 a year job almost starting out, right?
Wow.
So these are opportunities that, like what we say, we're opening this aperture. There's nothing wrong with getting a degree, and one of our most popular degree programs amongst our associates is a business degree. One of our most popular credentials is Spanish language speaking, getting that credential. Yeah. So there's nothing that says a college degree is no less valuable than a short form credential, for example. It's really just trying to meet everyone where they're at and help them unlock their potential through coaching them to discover what it is they're really interested in doing. And so that's one model that I think, and a lot of us here think, is really going to upend what we think of education in this country.
Yeah, gosh, I'm so happy we're having this conversation, because when you look at what Walmart is doing from the outside, from a casual observer's perspective, what you just described doesn't come across. So if you can talk to your marketing and PR folks, I think
a good point. We have actually been hearing that a little. And candidly, when I was when they were recruiting me for this job, at first I was like, Walmart, okay, well, it's a retailer. Let me look at that, right? And I had been at Home Depot. But then when I was told about the remit I would have, which includes Live Better You, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on here. We're providing no-cost education for our associates to expand their opportunity, their pathways, right? And we're really doing that. Like I had to ask a couple questions. And yes, we're really doing that. And it's not because we feel like we have to do that. It's the right thing to do. And so Doug talks about this this thing he he says that he wants us to be, which is a regenerative company. And in most manners, a regenerative company means the communities in which we serve, we want to make sure that we're helping to give back to those communities and look at how we are operating in a more sustainable way. But it also applies to the people practice. So how are we looking at the folks who decide to come work here? And not just, no one wants a dead-end job. So how are we able, through our ecosystem, to what my boss calls make a, move away from the one-size-fits-all model to a one-size-fits-one model, even at our scale. And so how can we leverage our scale to, like I said earlier, democratize opportunity? And it's something that we now feel like is the right thing to do, but it also creates so much value for our communities, for our associates, for their families. If you're tripling someone's quality of life, or if you're, one of the folks on my team, she was pushing her daughter, saying you need to go to school and get educated. You need to get a college degree. She was telling her that, and her daughter looked back at her and said, well, Mom, you don't have a college degree, so why do I need to go get one? And that hit her like a brick. And so she's an associate at Walmart. She signed up for LBU, Live Better You, and she got a degree. And so, it's like it has this regenerative effect when you invest in your people. And so, you're right. We need to talk more about it. What we're doing.
Yeah. No, I know this episode is supposed to be on business is on business acumen. But the conversation we're having, either directly or indirectly influences the business acumen of everybody, that's working in the business. Brandon, normally, we cut to a commercial, but this has been such an engaging conversation for me. We're not going to do a commercial for my book at all here. No, we're just going to roll right in, because I want to ask you, I want to get back to business acumen and pick your brain on the skills equation. So, we talk a lot about alternative pathways into the workplace, skills-based hiring, the reskilling revolution, as I mentioned before. And you're at the tip of the spear for that. If you had to pick two, what I call sub-skills that are absolutely essential to improving business acumen in the average employee, what would those skills be?
Andy, you bring up the hard question. So it's expand, I would say, the ability to expand your capacity for complexity. Because, and I'll, usually go off on tangents here. Let me go on this one. I'll bring it back around. I was in a talent review with our chief operating officer several months ago, and we were just doing introductions, and he hadn't met me before I hadn't met him. And I was explaining what I do. And the brilliant man he is, he looks at me and he's like, okay, well, what are you doing to prepare us for the 2030 Walmart? And of course, with a senior executive, you always want to have an answer. But that kind of stumped me, and it stuck with me too, because I'm like, I'm creating leadership development, but it was a really good question, because what are we doing to develop? It's not about today. It's about, we need the leaders that are going to take us into the future of business that we can't necessarily, I hear this all the time. Well, how do you future-proof? You don't future-proof. There's no way you can do that. You have to just be future ready. And we don't know what retail is going to be like in 8 years. We don't know we didn't know 2 years ago that our customers would be okay with us coming into their house and putting their groceries into their refrigerator. And that's now a service we offer, right? We come in here, we take the item you want to return from your counter, and we go return it for you, right? So when he said that, I thought, okay, we've got to develop leaders in a way to be able to expand their capacity for the complexity that they have to navigate. And so I would say the ability to be that systems thinker, to look up and around and understand more about just what you do, but how the business itself operates, that, and how you can move through complexity, moving your team, developing your team for that, moving the business forward. And what that takes are these sort of sub skills, if you will, of curiosity and courage. And Eric Schmidt once said he only hires for two things, and that's persistence and courage, right? And that's really what we need. So I would say business acumen starts there. We've got to have curiosity. We've got to have courage, because once you get a POV or point of view on something, then you have to be able to try to drive it forward. And one thing that we have here is a lot of complexity when you think about, the scale at which we operate and trying to meet the customer's promise every day with what they want, right? And I mean, we get 11 million job applications every day, Andy. So we have a scale that is quite astronomical. But if we break one customer promise, it's an issue. So for our leaders to be able to navigate that complexity, we must have systems thinkers, people who can, with courage and persistence and curiosity, drive us forward.
Yeah, as you're talking, what I'm hearing in the background is also that, when you said future ready, it's, to me, that's understanding one's own both appetite for change and ability to navigate through change. And, we don't talk enough about change management and helping our people understand their own experience with change. So that's just something I would kind of pile on top of.
I love that you add that, because just 2 days ago, we were in a meeting with my boss. There were some of us in there, and that's what and by the way, I say my boss, her name is Lorraine Stomsky, and she's fantastic. She's a fantastic leader at Walmart. But she told us, she's like, look, change is constant, and it will be constant. So when I say navigate complexity, I think you hit it. It's really that change is going to keep happening. I mean, we've had to do so much what we call pivoting, if you will, during the crisis. I mean, I was at Delta when the pandemic unfolded, which is an airline. I would highly recommend you don't work at an airline during a global pandemic. It's for some odd reason, people don't want to get in a metal tube together and travel when there's a pandemic.
Sure.
But that business was put to rest, and that was a different type of complexity we had to lead through. Whereas during the pandemic, Walmart became, a needed service for the nation, because they were supplying goods and people were looking for products that they needed to have in their houses and stuff, and they needed to get it in a safe way, right? Because there was so much unknown about it. That's a different level of complexity too. And you're right, that change was happening so fast, and it's not like it's going to slow down. Because in June of 2020, like Satya Nadella said, the CEO of Microsoft, he's like, we went through 2 years of digital transformation in like 2 weeks. And so that's massive change. Candidly, we did pretty well with that as a nation, as a world. We had too many deaths and we had too much pain and suffering through that. But when it comes to business continuity, technology is what kept us going. And it was really exponentially, a catalyst, if you will, for making sure that we could come out of this in just a little over a year with a vaccine, So all of those things coming together, I think you're right, navigating change, what my boss said the other day. Now it's just going to be constant, and we have to live with that. That doesn't make us as workers necessarily more comfortable, because there's a significant number of us that it's troubling to navigate change. And so as a leader, if you're a leader in a company, that's one of your biggest challenges, right? Is to help your people through that.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, we're up against time. I would love, just my last question for you before I let you go. You founded Learning and Development Cares, or L&D Cares, in 2020. Can you clue us in on L&D Care's purpose and how our listeners can, quote unquote, learn more?
Oh, well, thank you for bringing it up, Andy. And you've been a part of L&D Care, so I appreciate that. So we founded it in 2020, really as a response to the unfolding pandemic. So it was in April of 2020 we founded. Things were just starting to happen. And I really feared that this might be cataclysmic in some ways to companies that would then impact their L&D operations. And so we came together as a resource group to all volunteer, to offer coaching, mentoring, and resources for L&D professionals and HR professionals who may be adversely impacted by what was going on with COVID. And of course, some of what happened as it continued to unfold was we actually became more important. L&D operations and HR operations became more important for business continuity. So although we did help people who were displaced or needed to transition in their career because of impacts that weren't voluntary, it also became a resource for people to collectively network with each other on just how to navigate this as people professionals, right? And so we have over 2,000 members. We're still active. We went through the pandemic. We did a lot of bringing people together to work on some of the bigger issues that we're facing in the profession. We have coaching circles. We have a mentoring program, no cost for anyone who wants to join and be a part of the community. We have committed and passionate volunteers. It's ldcares.org if anyone wants to connect to the website and learn more and potentially volunteer or become a member and then access one of the coaching circles or the mentoring program. And I may be calling you up, Andy, to see if you want to mentor as well. But it's a thriving community now that's changed a bit. We're not so worried about the impact of a global crisis from the work perspective. Now we're offering mentoring and coaching to new entrants in the practice, especially teachers who have left that practice and they want to come into the corporate L&D function, and also more tenured folks that are trying to figure out what their next transitions are in their career. And so we're having a fantastic, time with the community and lots of committed professionals who are geeking out about L&D and HR all the time. So again, ldcares.org, thank you for mentioning it, but it's a thriving community of practitioners and leaders in the industry.
Well, Brandon, I'm so thrilled. This is going to be the extra large version of the podcast. And
I talk too much, Andy. That's the bottom line. Sorry.
No. Yeah. Well, but what you're saying is it's all really, really important stuff. So you've had Brandon Carson on the show. This is his book, L&D's Playbook for the Digital Age. You can pick it up on Amazon.
You can also buy it on Walmart.com. I will add that too.
Yes. Good plug. You get it at Walmart.com. Forget about that Amazon place. Get it at Walmart.
No worries. It's available anywhere. It's not available at Barnes & Noble last I looked. So.
Very good. All right, Brandon, we got to wrap things up. My name is Andy Tempte. This is the Balancing Act podcast, found on all major podcasting services, also available on YouTube. Brandon, I'm so grateful we were able to get together. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.